Welcome to the Being Blackbeard podcast, a show for pirate geeks and TV fans about the show Crossbones. Here are your hosts, Phil Johnson, Tony D'Amco, and Richard Dreiling.
All right, turn it up, swashbucklers. Welcome to episode 3 of the Being Blackbeard podcast. I am one of your hosts, Phil Johnson, and with me tonight is Richard Dreiling.
Hey, everybody.
And Tony D'Amco.
Arg.
Arg. We needed an arg.
It's time.
Third episode, we hadn't had an arg yet.
What were we waiting for?
Cool. So tonight we are discussing episode 3 of Crossbones, an episode titled "The Man Who Killed Blackbeard." And I guess first we should talk about maybe why there was no episode last week, which was pretty odd for week 3 of a show. Your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think as it turns out, it was Game 5 of the NHL Finals, and since it went to double overtime and NBC was covering it, I think they just probably pulled it at some point, which is a real shame for a miniseries like this, but that's the only possible reason I can come up with.
Okay, yeah, I see. I wasn't even aware it was hockey season. So,
As far as I'm concerned, if there's not snow on the ground, it's not hockey season. So that means for me, it's been about 10 years.
All right. Well, yeah, that probably doesn't
argue with logic like that.
It was kind of a shame though not to have. I mean, for so early in a series run to have to miss a week like that. Apparently, it didn't hurt their ratings all that bad. I guess from episode 2 they had a 1.0 share, and it went down a little bit to a 0.9 share for this one. But that doesn't seem like an insurmountable loss that they can't bring back. So. But in this episode, you know what I was excited to see? We finally saw some piratey stuff. We had buried treasure right off the bat. We had ships. We had sword fighting. We had water. It was like they finally went, oh, it's a pirate show. We should do something piratey.
We had damsels in distress. Yes, we had buried damsels in distress. I mean, really, they were combining it on all fronts.
I think we're starting to see them butt up. I mean, we kind of talked about this before this podcast about
was a lot more,
kind of, they're butting up against a
lot of different storylines coming together.
The network versus cable kind of gritty divide, if you will. There's probably a better way to phrase it than that, but I liked it a lot. I'm really surprised by how much I actually gave a shit about the quartermaster's wife, even though they didn't even hold their hand when it came to normally they stay the hand. They're like, all right, dude, about 6 episodes in, we'll start the romance going. These guys are like, nah, man, she's married, but fuck it, and then second episode, just That's my sex noise. In future, if I just go, that's sex. Just don't ask my wife about that.
Arg, which is weird.
Arg.
Arg.
Yeah, they were pretty brutal on her. I mean, I was actually surprised when the guard socked her in the stomach like that. I was like, wow, that's kind of hardcore, even for 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying about the very first episode, which started off very, very action-oriented, very violent, the first 15 minutes of episode 1. And it kind of tapered off a little bit in episode 2, but I kind of like the fact that they're playing this to the tilt, and they played it a lot more in this episode than they had in the previous episode. And these are bad men, and these are blurred lines, and they're doing horrible things, and that's not the lure of the show, but it's just being realistic to it, which I think is fantastic about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, yeah. You were mentioning the network versus cable thing, Rich, and one of the things that I was kind of noticing about it was that they're not quite. I think one of the things that would help the show a little bit to drive viewers into the next episode would be a better sort of cliffhanger ending at the episode, because when you watch something like Breaking Bad or Walking Dead or The Sopranos or something, there was always that kind of mind-blowing twist right at the end, and then they just leave you hanging until the next week. And to me, it almost feels like they're tying up the plot a little bit too neatly at the end. They kind of gave you a little bit of a hook at the end of this one, but it was honestly not even strong enough that I remember what that hook was. I just remember there was a little bit of a thing at the end where you went, oh, there's a thing. But it's not like the end of a Breaking Bad episode where you go, oh my God, wait a week. You know, it's not. They haven't done that kind of thing with it yet, though. And I think that would. I think that would certainly drive the viewership into the next episode.
Yeah, I think that's a risky decision though. So like, I think what these guys are hoping is that they'll, I mean, I look at film execs even in my limited experience, and just looking at as I am as a fan, it's like you got to look at them as just very risk averse people, because it comes down to like what they can get fired for saying yes on versus you don't really get fired for saying no. You know what I mean? Like, you'll get fired for saying yes more than you'll get fired for saying no.
Right.
So I think what a lot of these guys are is really just covering their asses. So they're like, well, if we make it too serialized, then if someone comes in episode 3, they won't know what's going on. When really, they won't fucking know what's going on anyway. Because we've already covered so much ground. Like, the whole premise of the series has pretty much been alleviated at this point. Like, the equivalent of a sextant or whatever that thing was, like the navigation system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing, it's already gone. Like, he got rid of it. Sold it to the British Empire. Like history dictates.
Yeah, I thought that was weird that they dispensed with that plot point so not only so quickly, but so easily.
Yeah. And then the premise was, oh, well, Blackbeard, we got to kill Blackbeard, bro. And now it's like, oh, the guy who told you to kill Blackbeard is a fucking prick. He says, bro.
Well, to comment on what you said earlier, Richard, that's the thing that's, I think, very frustrating about the show, is that it's not willing to go all in. And you're talking about the guys saying, well, it's better to say no to something, we'll get hired again, as compared to saying yes. But the fact is, the guys who have said yes to series in the past have made the most highly anticipated series. It was a guy saying yes to Breaking Bad. It was a guy saying yes to Mad Men. It was a guy saying yes to The Walking Dead. As a guy saying, maybe not, or what are we going to do with Margaret Cho's TV series or Tom Rhodes, which turned into nothing?
Right.
They got to gamble, and the love I have of the show also is bared with the frustration I have with whoever the powers that be are not putting all their chips in and just saying, hey, we're going to go all out. We don't know if this is going to last. I think I said earlier about how every episode seems to be made with the anticipation, like, well, we're going to get canceled, so let's just wrap it up now. They should, and what made the show so fantastic right from the word go was that it seemed to be a lot more ballsier, and I would just wish with everything that's going on with it that they would just go all in and make a bloody, horrible, these are bad men doing bad things, pirate TV series, and just say, well, we're going to get fired anyway. It's almost like you've ever been being let go from a job and you have that last day. You kind of play it balls to the walls because what else can they do to you? I wish the people behind the show would kind of take that step and go further.
I agree with you. I think it would make for a lot higher quality show where, like, I would just want to see, like, let John Malkovich just go nuts, dude. Like, just let him go nuts. I'm sure he'll get into character. Just let him write an episode. I'm sure he's a good improviser. He's got to be. And there's just, I don't know, there just seems like there could be a lot, but they're focusing, they like spread out too quickly. First of all, it's like a weird paradox between, like, if you remember in Breaking Bad structure, like, you had kind of like one tiny little problem that would be dealt with every single, episode. And like this, like we said, they already went away from the original premise like very quickly, and then on top of that, you have like, it's just you have these like tiny little plot points that we're seeing, and they're supposed to build into something, but nothing that I really give a shit about. Like, the one girl took the ruby from one of the prostitute ladies. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But she jacked that, and then the one, I don't know, the lady in house with agoraphobia, but obviously it's like the 1700s, so they don't diagnose that.
Yeah, she's just vexed when she goes outside, which I did like her phrasing of that. Selima's character.
Exactly. Selena? That's her name? Okay.
I think Selima, yes.
Selima? All right. So then there's like the doubt that the guy who used to be his first mate or whatever instilled, because he told her that Blackbeard wanted her to be killed if the British came. But he just said that, oh, he told me to kill you. And so when he came back and then like kissed her, then she looked really, disturbed.
Yeah.
So those are really like the only two things that I see that are going from series to series, other than the quartermaster is probably going to shoot Lowe in the leg when he finds out that he's been fucking his wife.
Yeah, there's bound to be there's got to be some sort of showdown between those two coming, and it just seems like it's going to be a pretty awkward one.
Yep. Just painful to watch. Like, it won't even add anything to the quality of the series. It'll just be people at home like, oh my god, oh, that sucks. It's messy.
Well, two things if I can add on. One, part of my frustration, again, always comes back to the fact that I do love the cast and I do love the writing. I've seen enough of it that it is getting me hooked, and I see the possibilities. But also, and I'm a big fan of big cast shows, whether it be a movie or a TV series. I like big casts. I like ensembles. Part of the frustration, though, I have with the show, and it goes in the conversation that we've had on the podcast, we've often referred to characters by their actor's name or that person. Other than Lowe, Finch, and Blackbeard, you never hear anybody's name. You have to literally go on IMDB to find out the guy who was hooking up with Selema. Oh, his name's Charlie Ryder. Oh, okay, now I get it.
Yep, Charlie Ryder.
Little things like that in the writing make it frustrating to me. This is going to seem like a weird connection, but when they did the first episodes of the new Star Wars, it was like, can you say the character's name so I can buy into this character a little bit instead of saying, oh, that's the blonde guy, that's the pirate dude, oh, that's that chick. Little things like that in writing are very frustrating to me as a fan.
I agree with you. It should be memorable names that you can pronounce. It's like, sometimes the marketing team has to get in there and write that. It's just unfortunate, but it's true.
Oh, absolutely. There's a reason that they're there. And I'm tired of having to Google somebody's character to see, like, oh, is that who they're called? Okay. Again, I don't always want to talk about the frustrations I have with the series because I do think it's really good and really well done.
What I do love, though, is that there's a character named Trollop in the series, played by Rima Sampat. Her name is Trollop. Dude, come on. I don't know. It's Trollop? Are you kidding me? I
well,
just
that's
don't.
where the word comes from. She was actually the namesake of it.
Oh, she's the namesake of it?
Yeah.
So
like
she's like
Alfred Toast.
So it would be like if every whore was named Mary Magdalene, they're just like, oh, yeah. She's a Mary.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
Sort of like the Earl of Sandwich. That's what Trollop is.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So that's funny. All right. I thought they were just like, nah, man, it's like, scared inmate number 1. But just Trollop. She's just too lazy to give her a real name. That's what I thought it was.
I like my way better.
Yeah. I'm looking on here, and Neil Cross, one of the writers of Crossbones, is a writer for Luther. So, I mean, the writing should be good. So I'm guessing whatever issues they're coming up against are probably structural, in the studio or whoever's producing it, rather than, their own fault, I guess. Just point the finger at the execs.
Yeah, I mean, I think even between the 3 episodes that we've seen so far and some of the things that have been added and then taken away, it seems like a series that has a lot of chefs in the kitchen, whether it could be the director, the writer, the producers, network people. It seems like everyone's jumping in and having their thing done, and which is just making the series harder and harder to follow. And again, it's been so good in so many different ways up until this that it just makes it all the more frustrating.
I agree, absolutely.
So what do you guys think about the bleeding eye woman? Because we did find out that Blackbeard doesn't know who she is. Because at first, when she showed up again, I'm like, okay, it's an illegitimate daughter that he gave up, or it's a lost love of some sort that he accidentally killed, or something like that. But he tells Lowe that he doesn't know who the woman is. So, guesses?
It's got to be something that is completely tied in with whatever his I don't know. Like, we don't know if it's mental illness or like a tumor. So, if it's mental illness, then they can just write it off as like, oh, it won't actually be somebody of importance. But if it's, I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe it's mystical, and then they could be like, it's a woman he killed. But no, I don't know, because you said he didn't know her, so I don't really know. Just
gut instinct says it's somebody he didn't mean to kill but did kill, and in some sort of inadvertent way.
That makes sense.
But that's just pure speculation.
That was kind of my thought too. Yeah.
But I'm curious. I hope they continue the series at least through the 10 episodes, so we get to find out and get some sort of other closure off of that storyline.
Yeah, I hope that if they're going to drag it out that long, that it is something that is a worthwhile plot point. Because right from the very beginning, they were. I mean, that was one of the earliest things in the first episode was this bleeding eye lady. So maybe that's the plot point they're not going to sew up right away, which is nice. I think that's cool. And they'll just keep kind of dropping hints along the way about who she might be. You know what we didn't get in this episode? He did not stick anything in his head.
That's true.
The drinking game would have ended already.
But somebody stuck something in his girl, so I think that should count. I think that's fair. It's a fair trade.
That's true.
So let's talk dialogue. What was your guys' favorite lines on this one?
Oh, come on now. I can't remember it now. Oh, I talked about it earlier.
Oh, you mentioned the line about evil doesn't win, power doesn't win, God doesn't win, country doesn't win, money wins. Money
trumps God, country, and king. And he says it in that way that it's just like, boom, and you're like, oh, critique on capitalism, oh, coming from a network show, oh. And then really it's like, oh, well, this is a network show.
The pirates are incredibly libertarian. I think that's been pretty obvious to me, at least my take on it from the show's beginning, which I do enjoy. But yeah, I think there is a definite government reference they're making through the show, as far as what the pirates represent, what the British represent, and I like that little take on it, especially coming from Blackbeard.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. Every time they do something like that, I'm almost like, oh, are we making a comment on today's society? It almost feels like they're getting a little preachy about modern day society. But then I have to go. I go, nah, that's probably just in my head.
Well, I mean, so think about it this way, right? Like, we're in an unprecedented kind of weird time in American history where you have a lot of Tea Party nutbags. I mean, not nutbags, right? Just Tea Party people. Some of them are well-meaning. Some of them just read Ayn Rand and don't fill philosophical holes, right? So that's one thing. But so you got this time where people are upset about their taxes. They're upset about all these things, and then you have this mirrored time frame where the revolutionary spirit was alive and well. And I think it's really interesting because at the beginning of the whole thing, you assume that Lowe's assignment, this dude that's assigning him is the good guy. He has that traditional all right, here's your mission, son, should you choose to accept it. This message will just explode in 15 seconds, but it's the 1700s, so he's face to face, right? And then so you have that.
It's actually a parrot talking, not a recording.
It's a parrot. And then dynamite just from the inside of the parrot. It was timed on a long thing. All right, anyway. So yeah, I mean, so then we get this reversal where you see that guy. What was his name? William. Do you guys know who I'm talking about, right? William, the guy that.
Julian Sands' character.
Yes,
William
Julian Sands. Yeah, I mean he's horrible. You see him as a bad. So even though you see John Malkovich's character, you see Blackbeard be ridiculous in the first episode. You kind of see a method to his ruthlessness, whereas the other guy, I couldn't get on his side. I couldn't identify with him. So I think it's an interesting role reversal that they're playing with.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I do think they are making a direct correlation between big government, little government, libertarian, conservatism, liberalism. But the thing I like about the series is that it's not picking sides. It's telling the good and bad on both angles. Well, here's the pluses and minuses of this side. Here's the pluses and minuses of this outlook. Here are the pluses and minuses of this political view. It's I don't think it was necessarily the goal of the series, but they have incorporated it into the show, in my opinion, obviously. But I like the fact that they're not saying one's better than the other. They're just putting it all out there and letting the viewers decide and seeing, again, the pluses and minuses of both outlooks, which, not to sound so like San Francisco douchey about it, but I think that's what art is, and that's what writing and whether it be television, poetry, song, what have you, creativity should be in putting that out there. And again, it's just one of the many aspects of the show and the writing that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's pretty interesting how they managed to. I think it's. I mean, think of every portrayal of Blackbeard throughout history. He's basically Captain Hook with like a big black beard, and he's just this ruthless guy who's just like yar, running around and like slaughtering people. But here is Edward Teach, and he's a learned individual, and he's read like the Greek philosophers, and he's done like a lot of stuff. And I don't think that you can just discount that. Like, I think it's really awesome that they threw that theory in there, and they threw that kind of weird, because here we are, like, we're Americans watching this show. So in the context of this, we don't really like the British either, because we're about to lay down a can of whoop ass, or as I like to say, a can of, never mind, that would be controversial. I was going to say a can of Iraq, right? Like, we're just a can of, hey, power projection is difficult, and we've known that since before the time of Alexander the Great, but why don't we keep making the same mistake, great nations? Let's do that. Let's try to project force over a fucking ocean. And then we get beat by a bunch of rednecks and wonder why, you know? Red coats getting beat by rednecks. But I think it's just interesting how, you know, as Americans we're watching this show and we're kind of rooting for the pirates, I think. I mean, and they're going to vote for each other? What? Democracy?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, America. You know?
Yeah, it goes back to episode 2 where Blackbeard realized he cannot rule as a tyranny because that would turn his legion against him. I think it's also the evolution in all storytelling where we like a villain or an protagonist and antagonist that's a little complicated, that isn't clear black and white. We don't need the Luke and Darth scenario anymore. We like a villain who kind of sways us a little bit. We like the Joker. We like the Lex Luthor. We like a villain or a Magneto, a villain that comes from a perspective like, well, yeah, they're doing bad things, but they kind of have a point, and there's a method behind their madness.
Yeah,
and that's what makes this Blackbeard character so different than every other Blackbeard we've envisioned or seen or read about. He's compelling and charismatic, and if you listen to him long enough, you're like, yeah, he's kind of right on a lot of things.
That's true. I mean, yeah, and that's kind of why everyone loved Walt at the beginning of Breaking Bad, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we desire a villain that we can cheer for, that makes sense, that we understand. It's not just this a guy sitting behind a train track, you know, twirling his mustache, tying a woman to train tracks. We like a villain that we can understand. Yeah. And yes, even though it's a podcast and you guys can't see me, I am twirling a mustache in front of me. Even if you look at the Joker from the last Batman movie, even a guy who's preaching absolute chaos, there's a line in his chaos that makes you go, shit, he's kind of right on some ways. And that's what makes, I think, this show in particular, the Blackbeard and the Low character, so interesting together. That they sometimes are going too far to the point of, well, is this really right? But if you look underneath it, you see a logic and a reason and a rationale, and even on both sides, a sense of honor to what they are doing. That you love, the back and forth between them is very compelling.
Yeah, I agree. Dude, all right, so I have a particular issue. I've been surfing on the internet here. Okay, and I'm not sure if this is going to wreck anything or whatever, but I have a weird kind of question, okay?
Okay.
So I just went on the IMDB page.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the cast, and it has, like, John Malkovich, 10 episodes. Selima, 10 episodes.
Oh, and Lowe says 3 episodes?
Yeah, Lowe says 3 episodes. What is with that?
I saw that earlier before the show, and because I was looking up some of the characters' names, I'm like, huh, where's Lowe? How come it only says 3 episodes for him? I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking the same thing. Well, refresh me, he didn't die in the last one, so I kind of assume he's coming back for the next episode, but it is funny that it only says 3 episodes for him. And same thing with Kate Belfour. The quartermaster girl.
You know, it could have been one of those things like I remember I think it was maybe like season 4 of Smallville or one of those seasons of Smallville, like Chloe had been blown up, like this character Chloe. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning of the next season, when they came back, they removed her name from the credits. And they removed her from the intro, and then what they did was, just to like keep that surprise. So maybe they didn't want us to know if Lowe and Kate are gonna live, so they just edited the IMDb page to be like.
That would make sense with the Kate character, especially in this last episode. But I mean, we kind of feel like Lowe is in this for the long haul, don't we? I mean, unless
I would hope so. Unless they're going to Ned Stark on the third episode.
Because we still got 2 more Julian Sands episodes, according to IMDb. It's funny that you did bring that up, because I was looking up that earlier because I was trying to figure out the characters' names. And, man, you got to kind of go pretty far down to find Lowe and Kate. I thought these were main characters. All right, whatever.
Yeah. No, it looks like Lowe's definitely in episode 4, because I think I just saw a preview for it. And, yeah, he's definitely in it. So from there, I can't tell you, but it should be interesting to find out. Stay tuned next week on the worst time slot in history.
Yeah.
That's some good sleuthing there. All right, guys. Well, why don't we wrap this up and do some plugs? Tony, do the plugs.
Okay, again, July 1st, I will be in Turlock, and July 29th, I will be at the Punchline recording a brand new CD as I'm headlining the show there. And in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Tony Diamco, DIJAMCO.
Good. Rich, you?
I will be fucking around doing absolutely nothing. No, I'm doing some shows, but they're nothing like cool enough to plug. I'll be telling dick jokes and dive bars. From here till November. No, but follow me on Twitter. It's at Rich Dreiling, DREYLING, and I'm Bamforescent, so make sure to get on that because I, share unfunny jokes from time to time.
Cool. And let's see, this week, Wednesday, June 25th, I'll be at the Art Bar in Santa Cruz, California. And Thursday, June 26th, I will be at the Palomino Room in Red Bluff, California, which, who knew there was a gig there? We go to the strangest places, you guys. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 3 of the Being Blackbeard podcast. Go head on over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review. Even if you don't like the show, give us a 5-star review. We'll accept pity votes. Yeah. We're totally down for that. And we will see you next week. Bye.
You've been listening to the Being Blackbeard podcast. Visit us at beingblackbeard.com and be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Arrgh!